It's another edition of Musical Shenanigans. And we're back again for show number 10. Stick around for podcasting like you've never heard before, which is why Bob Uecker and Mario Mendoza have much more hits than us. Here we are, 10th floor, women's lingerie, sporting goods, watch your step. And now, here's Dave, Corey, and Scott. Okay, welcome back. This is Corey.
And this is Dave.
And this is Scott. Praise Satan.
Praise Satan. And here we are once again. I'm not going to call it the thing with Tina Turner. This is just going to be the Showcase Showdown. Can we agree on that? Can it be Showcase Showdown?
Oh, you mean Thunderdome.
Oh, and there it is. The word I was trying to avoid.
Thunderdome Showdown. The danger word is Thunderdome.
Yes.
It's the one of the day.
When you hear it, kids, you know what to do.
Scream it loud.
Scream along with Satan. Yeah.
Okay. So,
right. Anyway, we have things to talk about.
All right. In the Showcase Showdown this evening,
in the
first round. Yay! In the first round will be Curtis Mayfield with Superfly up against Mobb Deep with the Infamous. In round 2, it will be Eagles with Hotel California up against Laura Nero with Eli and the 13th Confession. And yes, I did pronounce her name wrong last time.
You asshole.
You know, she did do an album after that called The 14th Confession.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
It's kind of an underground album. It was more reggae.
I had a kind of a hard time understanding this one because I didn't listen to the first 12.
Yeah, I felt like the first 12 must have had way too many questions unanswered.
Maybe so. It's
kind of like coming in on like Friday the 13th, part 10, and you're like, shit, I can't follow this.
Yeah, you don't know all the shit that Jason has been through.
For the longest time, my pinned tweet on Twitter was, I liked the first 4 Maroons better.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to get old quick.
I know. I love it.
All right. Since, Dave, you are the judge, take us into round 1.
Round 1, ladies and gentlemen. We will be, as Corey mentioned, we will be competing Mobb Deep's The Infamous against Superfly by Curtis Mayfield. Gentlemen, do you have your arguments ready?
Indeed.
Praise Satan.
All right, and I already fucking forgot who we said was going to go first. Who's going to go first?
I'm going to go first.
Okay.
I'm just going to go first. I'm
Scott,
gonna go
would you
first.
like to start?
I will. It's Curtis Mayfield. The album is Superfly. Now, this was released in the 70s. I didn't get the exact year. The music and the whole album, it's almost like you've smoked a pack of Cools. You want to go stick curb feelers on your big old Lincoln that's out in the yard and get a pimp hat and just cruise down the boulevard at 10 miles an hour with your arm out the window when you're listening to this shit, because it's that sort of music. Mayfield was one of the first of that time period, the 60s, 70s, where he injected social commentary into the music, which was apparently really popular to do back then, and he was one of the first ones to do it. Anyway, this album got, it was better than the movie that it was the soundtrack to. It's actually a soundtrack. It's just full of funk and groove. Tracks that really stood out to me were Superfly and Pusher Man. And it made me want to go snort like all the things. It made me just want to chop it all up into dust and just snort all the things that were there. It's so 70s. But it dealt with a lot of anti-drug shit. And yeah, it totally outgrossed the movie in terms of the money made. But Mayfield was originally part of a band called The Impressions back in the 50s, and he was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for that. He got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist as well. He's a double inductee. He also won a Grammy Legends Award, a Lifetime Achievement Award, and in 1990, he was paralyzed when a lighting rig fell on him while he was on stage. And he continued to make music after that. He was married twice, had 10 kids. Prolific motherfucker. Yeah, and he tuned his guitar because he was self-taught on guitar, so he tuned it by using the black keys on the piano, so it was tuned to like an open F tuning. Really fucked up. And I thought that was fun too. And again, I just want to go snort things. I want to do like all the drugs that they're not just like this album is like, yes, give me the fucking drugs, Satan.
That last bit was wild to me. I read that too, that he tuned his guitar against the black keys of pen. I can't.
Yeah.
I honestly, Scott. I mean, people who don't know, Scott plays guitar. I play guitar. I honestly don't know once he did that how the hell he figured out how to play from there.
I don't either. That's so bizarre to me. It's just like, okay, because I thought about it and I was like, yeah, I guess you could tune it that way, but that would be so weird. And yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, give up trying to read tablature when you're tuned to an open F sharp chord.
Yeah, what the fuck? That's just like, yeah, things are screwed from then on. So yeah, that's me. I'm good there.
I didn't realize actually that he was a double inductee into the Hall of Fame. I didn't.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
The dude was very talented, insanely talented, and a hell of a writer. So
yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
I have like mad respect for him on that level alone. There we go. And no weird stories or anything. No strange bullshit. No weird voices.
Yet. Awesome.
Calm down.
It's awesome.
Calm down.
I don't know which I'd prefer to have. The weird noises and voices or this fucking sound maker.
Well, Corey.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott. Corey, would you like to tell us a little bit about The Infamous by Mobb Deep?
Yes, let me prepare you. It is thundering here, so if you lose me, you'll know what happened. But of course, you know what's coming. Cue the music.
Praise Satan.
Hearken all to the rhythm of my voice, be they listeners, friends, or podcasters. In defense of hip-hop, I doth count thrice, for New York, Mesopotamia be, A Tribe Called Quest, Eric B. and Rakim, Boogie Down Productions, Run DMC, now Mobb Deep with Havoc and Prodigy. A rapping duo not known for their jest, harsh verse is survival of the fittest, and subjects of songs not light and pretty, existence upon streets and in prison. Rhymes of darkness and death are but gritty, realities that are but glorified upon moving screens, theater or home. Mobb Deep of hardcore rap doth keep it real. The West Coast of the East Coast scene did pilfer the greater depths, aggression, and anger for which the Prodigy gangsta was born. Betwixt the two coasts, Kanye cannot claim. He can proclaim West, but only in name. If Mobb Deep be deemed of hardcore hip-hop, Curtis Mayfield be of hardcore porno. Though when Superfly doth begin to play, the sounds of Eggman playeth in my head. A party of players, dealers, and pimps promotes intercity blaxploitation, though in his verse he doth but contradict. Mayfield, Havoc, and Prodigy have craft. Similar social subjects, yet years apart. Curtis is Superfly, but gets the shaft. Behold Mobb Deep, prodigious rappers hence. Gritty, angry, aggressive. To itself it doth lie true, for it does not sparkle. For in darkness glitter is only found, not upon feather of pimp's fedora, but on the fittest in this town. So go not boom, chicka boom, chicka boom. Load and pull that piece till it go click, click.
Well done, sir.
As
well
always.
Done. Yes, that was truly brilliant.
Live from the Globe Theater. Yeah, I will tell you, the Mobb Deep album, there you go. This was like another one that when we rattled it off at the end of last week's show and said we were going to be talking about it, like I think we, well, just speaking for myself, had never really heard of these guys, had never really heard of the album, but really liked it. I really like the beats and the sampling on this one. This was, when we did Eric B. and Rakim, which you mentioned earlier, there was all this talk about, oh, well, Eric B. was such an innovator when it came to laying down beats and sampling. All the stuff I had read about that album, this album was what I was expecting, quite frankly.
Yes.
This album...
Like the eerie piano sounds and a lot of the loops they put in were very, very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the music.
And another thing is with this album, Q-Tip was a primary producer from A Tribe Called Quest.
I did see that.
Did you notice a lot of the people that were involved in early rap hip hop, there was a lot of crossover between who worked with who.
And it's all New York.
Yes, there was a lot out of New York at that time.
Yeah, but to your point, Scott, like even within New York, it was this sort of tight-knit community and everybody was sort of working with everybody.
That's what I mean.
Q-Tip actually discovered these guys. They were going around and passing a cassette around. He got it. He liked it. He took it somewhere and went, you need to listen to this. And one of them was brought in to rap with another group, and I should have written this down, but it was on, they were used on soundtracks. I think it was in Boys in the Hood soundtrack.
Oh, interesting.
One of them was on prior to them, forming and getting a record deal together.
'Cause the boys in the hood are always hard.
I know that cover.
Come talking that trash and we'll pull your card. Don't want nothing in life but to be legit. Don't quote me, boy. I ain't said shit. That's a beautiful cover.
I'm trying to remember who did that one. I think the name. All I remember was the name of the album was "Take a Bite Out of Rhyme" or something like that.
Yeah. It was some local band too from Tampa.
Oh, was it real? That I didn't know.
Yeah, punk ass tripping in the dead of night. Homie's got a key, he's gonna fly. Punk ass fly. It was like, wow. Yeah, they put the original had Blackbird at the end of it, which was just fucking hilarious. And then they cut that out later. Now I can't remember who the fuck did it. Okay, that's
well, if we find out, we'll put a link on the page when this gets released.
There you go.
Corey will drop it in at about a tenth of the volume of the rest of the podcast.
Ooh.
I mean, here was a thing about this album. It was harsh. It was vivid.
Yeah.
It was real. I think it's what every Law and Order and prison show and reality show would love to capture, and I think they captured it here. I mean, there were certain songs that the imagery was just incredibly strong. It painted like a picture.
But I think Mayfield painted a picture too, but his was almost like the opposite of that, about the poverty and the pain.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they really were the opposite. I mean, they said
no.
Well,
so this
just
is
different aspects.
Well, what I tell you, as I was listening to this, and I queried whether I was going to say this now or when I came back and actually decided on which album I like better, but in a weird way, I know it feels like I say this every damn podcast, but sometimes you just have to reiterate, we really do choose these things at random, and sometimes we get these really interesting matchups, and in a weird way, to me, this was like two different versions of the same album. And what I mean by that is Curtis Mayfield grew up in the projects in Chicago. Mobb Deep was singing about the projects in New York. They were both singing about the crime rates and the decline of the communities and the lack of policing. They were both conveying it in a way that this fatalist attitude, like this is just the way life is and good luck if you can get shy the hell away from it, but odds are you're stuck here for life.
Yeah.
This was like, there was like a 1971 version of this album, and then there was a mid-90s version of this album, and it was almost like the exact same themes and messaging from two people who had grown up with two nearly identical backgrounds in a lot of ways.
They both deal with inner city issues.
Yep.
Yes.
Crime, poverty, and drug abuse.
Yeah.
And they both hit on that.
And anal warts.
I don't recall that one, but
I must have, was that like a bonus track I didn't
It must have
listen to?
been, yeah. You didn't hear that?
It was interesting. Mayfield, as much as the films were the whole blaxploitation,
yes,
his songs were actually anti-drug. I mean, he's something like the first anti-drug use.
His songs were totally anti-drug, yeah.
And as much as the films that glorify dealers and pimps, when pressed, I loved his brilliant reply. He says, the way you clean up the films is by cleaning up the streets. Basically, the films are just, they're there because this exists. This is a reality.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether they're spoofing it or, making it an action film or funny or whatever, they're not pulling from fiction.
True.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about the Mayfield album is the film itself, but apparently it is not as anti-drug as Mayfield's soundtrack. He had the scripts, he knew where the story was going. He wrote these songs to put his own personal views on drug usage, on drug selling, on the problem of narcotics in the black community. He put his own personal views out there, and then he insisted that the soundtrack was released like 4 months before the movie came out.
Oh.
So by the time the movie actually came out, the narrative had already taken hold that this was an anti-drug movie because the soundtrack got so popular that people went into the movie just assuming that was the message. Anything else we need to talk about?
I think I've covered everything I wanted to say.
I still wanted to do drugs while listening to Mayfield. I'm just saying it.
It's your prerogative.
It's an unsaid thing. If you hear that album, you're like, God, I need some drugs. In the back of your head, you're just like, fuck, I want drugs.
Okay.
Even if you didn't do it, you wanted them.
You can do drugs to Laura Nero for all I care. It's fine.
She's more a heroin type artist, honestly, but
I mean, I've got my Tylenol right here. I can always chop it up.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
All right, so gentlemen, I think we've covered this topic. I think now we take a break and hear from our sponsor. Corey, do we have a commercial that we're going to?
Sure.
Okay, so we take a break and hear from our sponsor, and then we will be right back with your verdict.
And now it's time for the Kanye Report.
Praise Satan!
Sure, why not? Praise Satan.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, this week, at the time of the recording, Kanye had recently just gone to a whole live stream from the, was it the Georgia Dome or the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta that he's like rented out.
Yeah.
You know, was he able to get that on Verbo? And basically, live stream, live tweet, whatever. It was like absolutely nothing. Like showed him like scratching his ass or something.
It showed him sleeping at one point. I know
apparently,
that.
I think he moved into a bedroom there to work on the album. What I'm looking at right now, I'm actually looking at. So we actually have sort of somewhat breaking Kanye news.
Okay.
Apparently, Kanye has decided that Mercedes-Benz Stadium is no longer working for him. And so after having moved in and lived there for the past several days, he has announced that it's not working and they're moving to a new stadium. No details yet on what the new stadium are.
All right. Yeah, I mean that says so much about him. It's like, Kanye, are you sure you're on the right meds? And you didn't take like the Flintstones chewables instead? Because it sounds like you did.
Well, I think everyone's just excited for Donda. Don't know what the fucking name
Donde
is.
está la biblioteca?
Yeah.
Well, here's a line from that one of the songs.
Oh, we
on
have
there.
a sneak preview.
Time and space is a luxury, but you came here to show that you're still in love with me. Kanye raps on the track. The track is called, and this is per People magazine. So the lyric seems to be a direct reference to the fact that Kardashian has attended both of his listening parties for the new album, along with all 4 of their children, North, Saint, Chicago, and Psalm.
All right, do we have anything else on Kanye?
Okay.
I think
I do not.
I think we're done with Kanye. I think the last tweet said that his, Donde is going to release on August 32nd. So that's what we have to look forward to.
Ooh,
listen, we're not going to force this bit, folks. But if we get any more interesting Kanye news, we will be sure to pass it along to you.
Yeah, who knows if this bit's even going to make it?
Hey!
All right, folks, we are back from commercial. Let's talk a little bit about these albums. I have given it some thought. I really have had a hard time trying to compare these two. You heard us talk about it earlier. In a lot of ways,
Scott,
there are. God, it's like a baby with a mobile over the crib.
No shit.
In a lot of ways, they really are very similar albums. This is not even an apples to, we always say, can you consider an apples or oranges comparison? This is almost like Red Delicious versus Pink Lady. This is almost like 2 versions of the same fruit. I think ultimately, though, probably comes down to influence, and we were just talking about it a little bit more. Curtis Mayfield had a huge influence as a musician, but this is about the albums. And I think you could make an argument that the Mobb Deep album had a bigger influence on the direction of music if you're focusing purely on the album. It really did change sort of the direction of hip-hop and rap for the next several years. So I think ultimately I got to go with The Infamous.
Okay. And Dave, with the upset this week.
Was that an upset?
Curtis Mayfield ranked in at 176. Or maybe 76. I don't know. It's my shitty handwriting. I have to check. And Mobb Deep ranked in at number 369.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. I did not realize I was making such a consequential decision there.
Well, that's why I don't usually, put this out first.
All of our actions have consequences, Dave. All of them. You should have snorted Curtis Mayfield. Instead,
okay, Curtis Mayfield is indeed number 76. This is a tremendous upset. And with that, we move on to round 2.
Round 2.
We have Eagles, which, I've been calling them the Eagles for years, and if you look at all their albums, there's no the on there. It just says Eagles.
Yeah.
Well,
imagine my surprise. I'm this many years old and go, there's no the? It's just Eagles?
Yeah, but if you look them up in Wikipedia, it says the Eagles.
But if you look on their album covers, it just says Eagles. We can leave the article in there if it makes you more comfortable tonight.
We can leave a lot of things where they lie tonight, I think.
Yes. All right.
And we will.
Eagles with Hotel California up against Laura Nyro with Eli and the 13th Confession. And Dave, you will be going first. You have the floor.
So, as luck would have it, we're recording today. I was actually just listening to our last show earlier today, and towards the end of the show, when Corey announced we were doing this album, we all kind of had the same reaction, like, who the hell is Laura Nyro? If you read up on her, and I certainly had to, you will find there's an awful lot of comparisons to Carole King. But while Carole King ultimately, of course, went on to kind of become this household name, Laura Nyro was largely forgotten. Apparently, she went into music at a young age. She did not have an easy childhood. She taught herself to play piano. She read a lot of poetry. She listened to her mother's records, which were things like Judy Garland and Billie Holiday and even classical composers like Debussy. If you're a musician, isn't that surprising? A lot of musicians take their influences from a wide variety of sources. However, if you're somebody who actually is able to make a career out of it, a lot of times musicians will settle into one specific style, just one singular style. Not the case here. This album, at least on the surface, it's sort of a jazz pop album, but there's also soul in there. There's elements of jazz, blues, rock, and I'm talking within the same track. On nearly every single track here, Nyro jumps from one style to the next. Sometimes she commits to a genre only for a few seconds before immediately shifting to another one. As a singer, there's nothing subtle. She's a belter. She is all over the place. And just to be clear, I'm not talking like American Idol vocal gymnastics here. This is not a situation where she's trying to impress the listener by how many notes she can hit. She really seems to be trying to convey what her intention was when she wrote the song. These comparisons to Carole King that you read about, they're very understandable. They're both piano players. They're both strong singers. But trust me, Carole King never did anything like this. In a lot of ways, this album is so experimental and envelope pushing that in a weird way, it's almost like her Sgt. Pepper's, which probably explains some of the influence. You've got Elton John and Todd Rundgren have both said that she was an influence. Others who have claimed her as an influence, Tori Amos, Kate Bush, who we talked about last week, Elvis Costello, Cyndi Lauper, Steely Dan, even a few people you'd never expect. Apparently, Alice Cooper calls Nyro one of his favorite songwriters. Paul Stanley of Kiss is an admirer of hers, and even our favorite podcast punching bag Kanye sampled Nyro on the album Graduation. I don't know if it was maybe her early death from ovarian cancer. She died at 49. Maybe that kept her from achieving sort of a wider notoriety. Maybe what she was doing was so novel, audiences couldn't connect with it. Again, I hadn't heard of her before last week, but in a lot of ways at this point, I'm really not sure why that is, to be honest.
All right. Okay, Scott.
All right. Well,
I'm afraid to tell you, but
here we are.
Let's hear what you got.
So I have to talk about Hotel California by Eagles, or the Eagles.
Wait, why do you sound like a third grader giving a book report right now?
Just
okay.
Okay. You must be quiet. Silence that one. It is the 5th album. It is the year's 1976. It is the 5th album in the Eagles collection. Anyway, it's the first album with Joe Walsh. It's the last album with Randy Meisner. Just for that. It's been certified platinum 26 times over. So, I'm not going to tell you about Hotel California. No. I'm going to tell you about a very obscure album by, and I know this is a little unusual, but it reminded me, I had to go digging for this. It's an album by Frank Sinatra, and it's not one that anyone is really familiar with anymore because it was really obscure. And it's called Frank Sinatra and the 12 Psychic Oboists. Now, it's a lesser-known album, and on it, Frank explores a lot of darker themes for which he was not well known at all, like rough anal sex.
How rough was it?
Okay. God damn it. So anyway, a lot of darker themes for which he's not well known, like rough anal sex, the leather boy scene of the early 60s.
sorry.
God damn it, this was not funny when I wrote it. Okay.
Wait a minute. Wait. I'm sorry. Was this supposed to be a gritty underground drama when you wrote it?
Yes. It's like he wrote about rough anal sex, the leather boy scene of the early 60s, plastic fetishism, and his otherwise obscure love of toaster porn. His backing band, now the 12 Psychic Oboists, have been largely uncredited, but they were made up entirely of mendicants and flim-flam men that Frank had met out west. And it is rumored that in the few live shows that they did, that they actually had Walt Whitman's corpse strung up on stage, and they made it clap in time with his scat rondos about scat play. Wow.
It was rumored. It was rumored. Because something like that wouldn't get any kind of, coverage whatsoever.
While audiences everywhere were amazed by Frank Sinatra's ingenuity and openness, not everyone loved the new Frank. In a posthumous interview, screen legend Jean Harlow was quoted as saying, "Frank's obsession with toasters as sex toys was something I just could not fathom. Frank's writing style is at once manic, but also meaningfully obscure, and denotes a sense of punk instability, which was a huge influence on the Sex Pistols."
Posthumous interview? Was it sort of seance?
John Lydon is quoted as saying, "If not for Frank screaming about getting ass hammered, there would be no Sex Pistols or God Save the Queen." And Sid Vicious, always a Sinatra fan, is said to have had a toaster tattooed on his ass in tribute to this obscure yet bizarre gem of an album. So all in all, Frank Sinatra and the 12 Psychic Oboists remains Old Blue Eye's most violent and frenetic album to date. It certainly influenced many later bands, as well as the clown porn from the early 1900s, and it wins hands down against the theme from T.J. Hooker. I yield.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Now here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna lose to that. I'm the actual fucking lawyer on this call. And every single time I come out with this cogent, well-crafted argument, and I end up losing to, I don't know, Trey Sletch's Cake, something, Kenny Loggins.
And it's a bike. No, it's a cow. So, which of the two would we like to start with? And neither of them is Frank fucking Sinatra and Oboists.
And the 12 Psychic Oboists.
Oh,
get it
psychic?
Right. The 12
they weren't psychedelic?
It's the 12
Psychic Oboists?
It's Frank Sinatra and the 12 Psychic Oboists.
So what? They didn't need sheet music? They knew what was coming?
That's the name of the album. I don't know. That's Frank.
Posthumous interview with Frank.
No, with Jean Harlow.
Yeah, but never mind.
I swear to God, I don't even know how to transition back at this point.
Let's go back to Laura Nero.
Okay.
Some sense of normalcy.
Interesting that you brought up Carole King. Her style was called a hybrid of brill building style, jazz, R&B, show tunes, rock, and soul. So, of course, me with the definitions, I had to look up, what is this brill building?
I'm seriously glad you did, because I was going to ask.
It's an office building. It's a 2-minute walk from Times Square. All right. No, anyway, so it's famous for housing music industry offices and studios where most popular American songs were written. A musician could go in, connect with publishers, record a demo, promote that demo, and go down the hall and wheel and deal with radio promoters, all in one building. It was something of what you would call like a music think tank. If the wrecking crew were the musicians playing all the songs, the brill building crew, I will call them, were the writers of the songs. So in this building were people like Carole King, Neil Diamond, Burt Bacharach, Bobby Darin, Neil Sedaka. They all worked in this building. This was how music was produced prior to rock and roll, when these pesky little kids started writing their own music. So what they would do is they were songs written to order for these acts that were out there that needed songs to fit their image. And basically they would customize the music and lyrics to accommodate a specific demographic. So if you had some teeny bopper, they were writing songs. So, I mean, think about Carole King wrote songs for the Monkees.
Well, that's Not surprising.
Neil Diamond did too.
That's fascinating, but all you're really doing is illustrating for me how different this was from Carole King, because I can't imagine that any of these songs came out of a boardroom of like, A&R guys trying to come up with a hit.
Well, no. They all worked in their own little cubicles. They all had like their pianos, their guitars, everything, and they could hear people in other areas trying to produce songs for different bands and for these different teeny boppers or whomever. That's where all of this came from. So it's part of that style of, these were ready-made songs that for a very long time were being purchased and used by a lot of the big names that were out there. This is where the writers came from. I mean, you look at all these popular songs from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you're like, I don't know how the hell this is where they wrote it. Well, they probably worked in this building.
I got you.
And then they got it recorded out in California with the Wrecking Crew.
So it's artists that kind of cut their teeth there, but then went on to do their own thing.
I thought this was a really interesting thing, that this is where she came from. Now, when I hear her, I immediately think, God, this is like just some, stuff I heard all through the 70s. Well, this album came out in 68. They were inspired by her. I feel like some of these songs felt like they were on Sesame Street. They were... I'm dead serious.
Well, it's funny
Summer
because
picked up from it.
It's funny because on one track I actually wrote down the note, this feels like something you would have heard on the old Donnie and Marie show back in the 70s.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know what?
Yes.
She may have written songs for them. Donnie and Marie might have been buying songs from this Brill building.
You mentioned that style of writing as songwriters. Well, it's not uncommon even today. I mean,
No,
for instance,
that's what-
Wrecking Ball, that Miley Cyrus sang, she had no hand in writing that at all. It was written by a crew of 6 different people.
Yes.
But this is what goes on in Nashville.
Yes.
There are
yes.
songwriters that live
Yes.
all around Nashville, and all the country acts come around,
And
or
they
they're
get together
or their
and
publicists or something, and they find,
Yep.
oh, this is a really good song. This will be good for... That'll be good for this artist, or that'll be good for
That's
this
what
artist.
they do.
Yeah.
And what they do is, and then they go to that artist and be like, okay, oh, you want it to be tweaked a little? You want it to be about a tractor instead of a lawnmower? Okay, we can make that happen.
Yeah, if
You're
you're
clown porn in that?
Yeah, if you're a fan
Well, maybe
of,
they don't
especially
ask
if you're a
about that.
fan of like Top 40 and you've got some artist that you particularly like or some song you particularly like, and you think that the person singing it wrote that song, I got a rude awakening for you. There's this phrase in the music industry, change a word, get a third, where they basically means that you have a bunch of consultants come up with the basic form of the song, and then at the last minute the singer comes in and literally changes one phrase and then gets the songwriting credit and gets to keep most of the royalties.
She did kind of pull a Broadway style. I would have thought that her music was pretty much mimicked when writing something like Hair.
I also thought Hair also came to mind.
Yeah, or Godspell. I was like, this just feels like the early 70s musicals.
It did, but here... Yeah, no, not Curtis again.
Yeah.
It did, but it didn't. I mean, at the same time, there is this thing that she was doing that was just amazing, where like when I was younger, I heard songs where they would start off in one way and then they maybe go to a bridge and the tune changes really dramatically, and I would think, why would they do that? Like, that's a whole nother song they could have gotten out of that separate riff. She's all over the place. It literally, she's not afraid to go through 4, 5, 6 different genres all in the space of 1 3-minute song.
The other thing too that I looked up and I remembered was that Elvis Costello, when he had his show Spectacle, Elton John was one of his first guests because Elton John was one of the producers, and they started talking about songwriting, and they talked about Laura Nyro. I forgot about that, but they were both fangirling over here, and just amazing. They go, when it comes to songwriters, when it just comes to that, I had to look back and go, oh, that's right, they did bring up someone that I'd completely never heard of, and that was it.
Clearly she had the talent. Yes, clearly she had the industry know-how, but, was Eli in the 13th Confession all that? Not really. I mean, come on, compared to Hotel California. Or even Frank Sinatra and the 12 Psychic Oboists.
And just so I can segue into the Eagles, she was in a relationship with Jackson Browne back in 1970.
True.
And Jackson Browne wrote "Take It Easy" with Glenn Frey.
Dude, everybody was in a relationship with Jackson Browne at that point.
It was 1970. Everybody was in a relationship with everybody at that point.
That's
true.
It was called it's called cocaine.
It's called Key Party.
Quaaludes.
You're right. Studio 54. Need we say more?
Right.
The one last thought on this album. I can't imagine how much time this took to do, not just the writing process, because of this jumping back and forth. It is, if you're somebody who plays music, there's no logic or predictability to this. Not just the writing, but then to go into a studio and convey it to the other musicians in the studio on what you're looking for and what's the progression of the songs, and to get them to learn it. And then to record it properly, and then to mix it properly. I just can't, it must have taken forever.
That would have been interesting to know more about the recording process. I agree.
All right, Dave, do you have anything to say about Hotel California?
I'm not going to get too into it. I think everybody, the one thing I do want to point out is, and I think everybody knows this is like, there's an argument that the Eagles are the most divisive band in music history, or at least right up there. You got a lot of people that love them. Scott mentioned, you're talking about an album that went platinum over and over again. You got a lot of people that can't stand them. There's the scene in The Big Lebowski where he gets kicked out of a cab because he tells the cabbie to turn off the Eagles. You got a lot of people like me, I think, who are somewhere, frankly, in the middle. And I've never really understood what it was that was so divisive about them. If you had like a focus group of like 10 people, and you told them the discussion was going to be, what do you think about the Eagles? You better stand the fuck back because somebody's about to get knocked out. Because that's how divisive they are. So I was trying to think of like why that is, because I never felt that strongly either way. Here's the thing with the Eagles. They're fine. They're decent musicians. They write music that's perfectly decent. They have fairly good lyrics. Don Henley has a good enough voice. They harmonize well. But that's kind of it. They're fine. Right? They never really did anything that was particularly innovative or groundbreaking. I mean, hell, we make fun of Kanye all the time, but I will say this. Kanye was 1,000 times more experimental and pushing the envelope than the Eagles. The harmonies, the harmonies are good, but they're not the Beatles. Don Henley can write a story, but not like Springsteen. Joe Walsh is a good guitar player, but he's not Eddie Van Halen. At the end of the day, they're really good. But that's it. They're certainly not, in my opinion, something that justifies being considered, greatest band of all time. Yeah, they sold a lot of records. People buy a lot of shit. What can I tell you? This is the thing about the Eagles. They are the art that you buy in Walmart, right? You may like it. It may go with your furniture. Maybe you bring it home and you get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And that's great. Glad you enjoy it. But it's not making a statement. It's not pushing any boundaries. You don't expect to find it in the Louvre. And I think that's what pisses people off, is the Eagles get all this love and celebration as if they were greatest things since sliced bread. And I think a lot of people listen and recognize that they're not bad. It's just undeserved, and it's a little overrated.
It was entirely overplayed on the radio too. So that's where a lot of people get that, is because you could not turn on a fucking radio between 76 and, today, and not hear a fucking Eagles song of some sort off that goddamn album. So you
can put it on a classic rock station, and within 24 hours, you will hear Hotel California at least twice.
At
least.
I think or Life in the Fast Lane, or any of those fucking.
I think
songs.
A big part of the reason that this album sold so many copies too was for a while there in the late 70s, early 80s, the going party game was trying to figure out what the hell the song was about.
Oh yeah, it was. There was a lot of like. That's funny too, because Henley was the chief writer of the lyrics at that point, and he even said he didn't. It was just kind of about the California scene. It wasn't really. There wasn't anything deep about it.
It was basically, he said they were coming up on the bicentennial of the U.S.
Right.
And the microcosm was California. Everyone flocked there. Everybody went there. And it's just like, hey, when you get here, just beware. There's a lot of fucking weird people here. There's a lot of strangeness going on. Don't just look at California as like, oh, California is like, no, you need to be prepared. This place is fucked up.
But there were, I can remember being younger and hearing the rumors that, it was really about the Church of Satan, and that, Hotel California was this old hotel that Anton LaVey had purchased and turned into the Church of Satan. It was a state mental hospital. It was about heroin addiction. There was all this stuff going around. And there really just was nothing that deep about it, to be perfectly honest.
No.
And that's why I thought that Frank Sinatra and the 12 Psychic Oboists, even though that album didn't chart on the Rolling Stone Top 500, which is completely undeserved. I mean, it deserves to be in there between Kanye's, at least between two of Kanye's albums. I mean, I think Frank Sinatra and the 12 Psychic Oboists would have charted in there, certainly. I mean, just the fact that he was doing scat rondos about leather boys. I mean, that alone.
Wait, hold on. How many oboists?
12.
I thought it was 9 earlier.
No, I think he said 12 earlier.
That's 12.
Did he say 12?
Said 12.
I'm just making sure 3 didn't just appear out.
No, it's the 12 Psychic Oboists. That's Yeah, it's like that's where Sting got his idea later on. A dream of the blue fish or whatever the fuck
Turtles.
he did. Right. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're done here. I don't really have anything more to say on Hotel California.
No one does because
I
everything
do
has
love
been
this
said.
album, and
Who doesn't? We all do.
And there you have
Sorta.
it. But
Not
okay,
really.
so
I fucking hated it.
I'm gonna deliberate now, and we will go to commercial.
Praise Satan.
Musical shenanigans! Do you like the music, lad?
Do you like podcasts?
Do you like expert analysis of music on podcasts?
Well, hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And here it is, Musical Shenanigans. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. So far, we've bribed Apple, Amazon, and iHeart, to name a few.
And we have compromising pictures of the others.
Also, find us on Twitter at M_Shenanigan, because Kanye follows us. Okay, maybe he doesn't. All right, and so back from deliberation here, and time to make our final decision. But before I can really make a decision, I need to know what the baked goods are involved here. That'll help tip me one way or the other.
Well, for Curtis Mayfield Superfly, it is a cream horn. And for Mobb Deep, the infamous, we have a slice of rhubarb cheesecake, because that's just kind of out there, but it's also fucking creamy and delicious. The Eagles, as we said, pumpkin pie. Laura Nero, well, she's more like a fish stew.
That's not a baked good.
That's what I'm sticking with that. Fish stew.
Okay, well, Hotel California, this is one of my favorite albums. I do love this album. I don't care what people say one way or the other. I know that there's haters out there. I have always just the musicians on that, and I will argue you on their vocals. They do harmonize quite well. They always have.
Oh, they do.
They do.
They do.
Seven Bridges Road. I'll bring you to
They
that.
just don't sing about. They don't sing about toaster sex though.
No, they don't. And then there's Laura Nero.
Yeah.
I had never heard of her. I had no idea. The first time I listened to the album, I was like, okay. And then I read some more about her. I read about the Brill Building and just all of the people she worked with and all of the people that she's influenced. I still think with 24 million sold albums, I'm going to go with Laura.
Are you really?
Ooh, and that is...
That's another...
This was a hard one for me. I love Hotel California.
So that is not one, but
I will
two.
play that album inside and out. And the thing was I didn't really, it really wasn't my thing listening to her album. When I listened to it a second time, I went in with a different mindset of going, okay, yeah, this all sounds like 70s stuff, but it's 1968. No one's done that sound yet. And that's what kind of came back to me was going, wait a minute, everybody's pulled from this sound. I'm hearing pieces in her songs and a little bit of lyrics that have been used everywhere else.
It's kind of like when people see their first Frank Lloyd Wright building and they're like, that's it. And then you tell them what year it was built and suddenly it clicks.
And that's always my argument. If there's a big influence,
Didn't he build vibrators?
and there's
Frank Lloyd Wright. Yes, he did.
yes, and he founded Bic.
That makes sense. Okay. And he snorted liquid paper. Yeah.
Yes.
You're thinking of Mike Nesmith.
Yeah.
Well, Mike Nesmith was probably one of the 12 psychic oboists, but that's not been confirmed.
That is two huge upsets on the show.
Now,
Huge
do you
upset,
all
yeah.
agree or disagree with that?
It's up to you as the judge. I bow to your wisdom, sir.
So this is, I think I'm going to say what you said. I think I'm going to say it in a slightly different way, but I think we're on the same page. I would rather sit down, if I had to go listen to more music tomorrow, I would rather sit down and listen to Hotel California. But to me, the Laura Nero is the more impressive creative work.
It's a much more interesting album than Hotel California, but only because Hotel California was literally just been etched into my brain and I can't get rid of the fucking thing because it's like Pink Floyd's The Wall. I love it, but I kind of hate it too because I've heard it too much.
Well, The Wall is one of those albums that I have to play from start to finish. You just don't throw Comfortably Numb or any of the songs I play on the radio out. I got to hear it in context. And if it comes up while I'm listening to the album, I'm good with it. Eagles, Hotel California was number 118. Laura Nero was number 463.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it's just a reminder, we're starting with the Rolling Stone top 500. So 463, she was damn near at the bottom of the list.
She was at the bottom. Wow.
And
I'm surprised she even made that list with all that shitty Kanye on there.
When the first time I listened through the album, I was like, oh yeah, this is a slam dunk. I'm just gonna come out and I'm gonna give you all the I was gonna do Steve Harvey, and all right, I'm gonna go with La La Land. No, it's the Eagles, but nope. I gave it a second. I gave it a second listen. I read some more articles about her. I read more about the influence she had, and here we are.
And hey, Corey asked if we agreed. Hey, but what do you guys think? What do you agree? Hit us up on the email. Corey, you want to give them the email address?
Yeah.
Tell me I'm a fucking idiot. What? m.shenanigan21@gmail.com.
Or alternatively, you can give us your opinion on Twitter at m_shenanigan.
Tweet the twit.
Yeah, tweet the twit. Thanks.
See what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did. All right. Yeah. We also...
Or, hey, you can also tell us all about what you think. Did you think that Frank Sinatra and the 12 Psychic Oboists, do you think that should have won? Because I think that should have fucking won. Frank and the 12 Psychic Oboists was just like... That was just hands down better. I mean, he was... Fuck, I mean, come on. Plastic fetishism? Really? Frank Sinatra? Plastic dildo in my ass.
Are you sure this wasn't Frank spelled with like a PH?
No, it's Frank Sinatra, man.
So hit us up on email, hit us up on Twitter, or if you want to talk about Frank, hit us up in the alternate reality that Scott lives in.
Yes.
Just tell them the truth.
And we were given another coffee. This came from Cathy, and this is someone that used to do podcasting long before I even knew what podcasting was. She was a host on Stuck in the 80s.
Oh, wow. Hey, Cathy.
Oh.
So I will be putting a link in the show to that so other people can find that.
Awesome. So, we'll check that out.
Thank you. And for Scott, there's someone she wants to put on the rocket.
And who would that be?
David Byrne.
Fuck yeah. Okay, he gets slapped in there right between, say, Michael Jackson and
wait, Michael Jackson's on the rocket?
When did Michael Jackson get on the rocket?
He's been on the rocket, dude. It's like Jewel. Jewel's been on the rocket forever. Jewel and Michael Jackson are like some of the founding members. Yeah, I mean, fuck
they're
Jewel.
NASA.
Yeah,
she's. I mean, come on. Jewel sings about fucking breakfast. That gets you on the rocket every time. David Byrne definitely deserves to be on the fucking rocket. Yes, we'll slap a big old ball gag on him, shove a big ass anal plug in his rear, and maybe with like a ponytail. And yeah, that'd be good. So when the retros kick in, it'll like incinerate and be colorful. Anyway,
I know you didn't mean it in this sense, but following up Frank's toaster fetish with Jewel sings about fucking breakfast was very amusing to me to say.
Yes, is that why they share a seat together on your rocket?
Maybe so. There's no rhyme or reason. I was thinking, we could have like, some special like seats to go underneath the rocket so that when the boosters go off and the whole thing just goes for liftoff, they'll be right underneath to get a bird's eye view of that.
You mean seats under where the flames come out in the bottom. I got
you. Right, yeah, at the bottom, yeah, underneath.
Yeah, but that's not on the rocket. That's under the rocket.
Right. Well, they'd be under the rocket.
Yeah. Hey, what do we have on deck next time? What albums are we working with?
That's right. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm your twit, apparently. On the next go, in round 1, is Blondie, Parallel Lines.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Up against Fiona Apple, Win the Pawn.
Oh, cool.
That's a good matchup.
That is.
Yeah, it is.
And round 2.
I like that.
Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Damn the Torpedoes.
Oh, shit.
Up against Creedence Clearwater Revival, Willie and the Poor Boys.
Wow.
So we get, two Lebowskis and references in a row. We get our Eagles and we get our Creedence.
And CCR. Fuck yeah.
I need to pee in your...
All right, so that's what you're going to hear
I need to pee!
next time. God damn it.
You don't have a sound effect for that?
No, sorry.
You're going to just
I
have
took
to
it away.
record yourself as a sound effect. All right, so again, thank you all.
Thank you. Someone who needs an Ativan.
Exactly. Fucking
I
Valium.
need send me Ativan in the big box with the little toasters underneath them and make it clown porn.
Okay.
Lithium.
Right.
Okay.
So, right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We'll be doing this again soon.
Ciao.
Ciao, baby.
Bye.